What would you say was the most significant ancient civilization in human history? Is it the Mesopotamian empires, the Chinese, the Greeks, or maybe the Egyptians? While all of these are great options, there is one undeniable standout answer. Ancient Egypt was the first major civilization in the world, and they set the bar so high that no other empire in antiquity would ever reach their level of cultural development. They pioneered many concepts which would become staples in future societies, such as writing, basic mathematics, and medicine.
Ho, ho, ho!
While also accomplishing breathtaking feats of engineering like their massive pyramids and temples. But what if I told you that Egypt almost wasn't Egypt during the classical era? Because between the death of Cleopatra in 30 BC and the Muslim conquest in 641 AD, Egypt was ruled by a Greek dynasty called the Ptolemies. And their story is unlike anything you have heard before. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be doing something different. Instead of covering a well-known battle or famous ruler,
Ho, ho, ho!
we'll be talking about the rise of a lesser-known dynasty which completely changed Egypt forever. To start off this series, I wanted to pick a topic that gave me creative freedom while still having plenty of source material. The Ptolemaic Dynasty fits both of those criteria perfectly. And over the next several episodes, we'll explore how this Greek family transformed Egyptian society from a Hellenistic backwater into one of the largest centers of learning and commerce in the ancient world. Now, if you're not already subscribed,
Ho, ho, ho!
now would be a great time to join because I plan on releasing videos on this topic every single week. So without further ado, let's dive right in. The year is 332 BC and Alexander the Great is in Egypt. Now this isn't exactly a surprise since everybody knows about this, but let me paint you a picture of just how impressive this was at the time. After defeating the Persians at the Battle of Issus, Alexander had made his way east into the Levant. But as he campaigned across Syria and Mesopotamia, there was always the looming threat of another Persian invasion into Egypt.
Ho, ho, ho!
This meant that the local satraps, or governors, had to work overtime to keep the border secure. When Alexander arrived, he found a country in sharp decline. The countryside was depopulated and the cities were suffering from lack of trade. All of this had the effect of making Egypt much weaker and easier to conquer. It took less than 2 months for Alexander to roll through the Sinai Desert and capture the capital city of Memphis. With this victory, the last thing Alexander expected was to find a new passion.
Ho, ho, ho!
Ancient historians tell us that when he entered the temple of the goddess Isis, he was overcome with emotion and immediately fell in love with Egyptian culture. He would go on to establish the city of Alexandria in 331 BC to serve as a new capital and showcase his cultural pride. After this, Alexander would visit the Oracle of Silla to pay homage to the god Ammon, where he was famously proclaimed to be the son of Zeus Ammon. Sadly, Alexander would never see any of his reforms come to fruition, as he was dead within a year.
Ho, ho, ho!
With the death of Alexander, Egypt came under the rule of his brother Ptolemy I. As a general in Alexander's army, Ptolemy had been put in charge of governing the kingdom in the king's absence. And upon assuming the title of pharaoh, he wasted no time in consolidating his power. One of the first things Ptolemy did was to begin minting coins in his own name, cutting Alexander out of the equation. He then went about purging anyone loyal to Alexander from positions of authority, including some of his own siblings.
Ho, ho, ho!
In the eyes of the Egyptian people, Ptolemy was nothing more than an upstart Macedonian who had betrayed his benefactor and usurped the throne. To combat this PR problem, he spent years cultivating an image of himself as the new Egyptian pharaoh. For example, Coins bearing his image show him wearing traditional Egyptian clothing and sporting the traditional pharaoh beard. He also built temples to Egyptian gods throughout his realm and supported the building of new ones as well. By the end of his reign,
Ho, ho, ho!
Ptolemy I had convinced the majority of Egyptians that he was the true successor to the old kingdoms and not just a foreign interloper. But why did he do this? Well, part of it was just good politics. If the population didn't accept his rule, he could easily be deposed by another general. However, there was more to it than that. You see, the surrounding kingdoms were also ruled by Alexander's generals, men like Seleucus, Antipater, and Cassander. And none of them were afraid to use force to get what they wanted.
Ho, ho, ho!
The only way for Egypt to stay independent was to join the others in adopting Greek customs and values. This process became known as Hellenization. And under Ptolemy I, Egypt was the most successful Hellenistic kingdom of them all. While Egypt flourished under Ptolemy I, the same could not be said about the rest of the empire. The other three kingdoms descended into constant warfare and civil strife, giving Egypt the opportunity to expand its borders. After Ptolemy's death in 283 BC, his successors continued this trend of military expansion,
Ho, ho, ho!
conquering Cyrene and the Levant and coming into conflict with the kingdom of Nubia. During this period, the Egyptian pharaohs were at the height of their power, ruling over the richest and most stable part of the eastern Mediterranean. So, how did they manage to pull this off? Well, it started with Alexander's decision to make Egypt a command economy, which allowed for quick, centralized distribution of resources. But what really set Egypt apart from the other kingdoms was their access to the sea. While their rivals were stuck fighting each other on land,
Ho, ho, ho!
Egypt was able to grow immensely wealthy through trade. Their exports included papyrus, wine, linen, ivory, and gold. But their most important export was grain. The Nile River flooded every summer, leaving behind fertile silt that grew an abundance of food. Most of this grain was exported to Rome, which became totally dependent on Egyptian wheat during the Republic. To facilitate this trade, Ptolemy II established a grain fleet composed of over 100 ships.
Ho, ho, ho!
This fleet would sail to Italy twice per year to deliver grain to the Romans, bringing back luxury goods in exchange. And it just so happened that this trade network caused the Roman Republic to intervene in Egyptian affairs. You see, in 275 BC, Ptolemy II died and left his heir apparent on the throne. But when he passed away just 6 years later, his widow Cleopatra tried to take the throne for herself. Now her half-brother, Ptolemy XIII, was only 10 years old at the time and couldn't rule independently.
Ho, ho, ho!
So Cleopatra basically acted as regent until he came of age. The problem was she was way too powerful for her own good. After taking control of the government, she began stripping royal family members of their titles and wealth. She even went as far as commissioning statues of herself with the title of pharaoh. The people saw this as Cleopatra trying to make herself a new queen in place of the legitimate king, which enraged them. As a result, she fled to the city of Alexandria and invited Rome to intervene in her dispute with the court.
Ho, ho, ho!
Soon enough, Pompey arrived with a Roman fleet and installed Cleopatra as co-regent alongside Ptolemy XIII. From a Roman perspective, this was the best of both worlds. They got to maintain the facade of Egyptian sovereignty while having someone friendly in the palace. But Cleopatra had other plans. She knew that Rome would never accept an Egyptian queen unless she married a Roman man. And she had already selected the perfect candidate, Julius Caesar. In 48 BC, Caesar arrived in Alexandria and immediately sided with Cleopatra against Ptolemy.
Ho, ho, ho!
But soon the two lovers had a falling out and Caesar was assassinated in Rome. This paved the way for Mark Antony to enter the picture. Like Caesar, he sided with Cleopatra and helped her defeat her brother. But their romance ended tragically when Octavian, Caesar's adopted son, invaded Egypt in 32 BC. And the rest, as they say, is history. Next time we'll be talking about how Cleopatra and the Ptolemies turned Alexandria into the greatest city in the ancient world. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. It really helps us out.
Ho, ho, ho!
Also, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for new episodes every single week.
Ho, ho, ho!